Hello, my chicklets. Thank you for stopping by. Before we get into the story, I want to thank everyone who participated in the poll on the community page. It looks like you guys would prefer a single short story as opposed to several smaller stories. So I am going to start looking through the public domain to see what stories I could possibly read for you guys. Lastly, I did want to tell you guys that I do have something planned for the end of next month, which would be my 1-year anniversary with doing Podfic. So I am very excited. I hope you all enjoy it. Let me start the story, Elegance and Scales. There are a few things that Janus would classify as peak elegance. Red wine, sleek black skirts, and heels were all on his list. That was why he chose that outfit for the photo. He had adored the way it looked on the hanger, waiting to be put on. Roman even let him borrow his red lipstick, begrudgingly, but it still completed the look. Each piece in his ensemble had been carefully chosen. Everything was peak elegance. Everything except his scales. His scales were not a choice, not a call to his dramaticism, and not something he could change. Sure, when he shapeshifted into the others, his scales would disappear, hidden in a veil of gentle lies. But when he was himself, bound to a form he hadn't chosen, he was forced to face the ugly truth. The scales marked him as other, wrote him as a villain. He was cunning and crafty, but he was not evil. His intentions were always to help Thomas. Janus looked through the pictures, editing them, adding in more shadows to hide his scales. The fans had wanted photos of him, practically demanded it, and who was he to deny an audience? However, that didn't mean he had to subject them to his scales, green and brown, like long abandoned moss. His fingers itched to pick at the offending skin, but he resisted the urge by clamping his hand tighter on the mouse. If he could get past the way his scales looked, have the confidence he feigned so easily, maybe then he would feel less monstrous. Janus sent the pictures off for Roman's final approval, shutting the laptop before making his way to bed. He was always an advocate for self-love and self-care, but he was a hypocrite. Maybe that was why he pushed so hard for Thomas to take care of himself. Maybe he thought if Thomas could accept all of the parts of himself, then Janus could learn to accept his own appearance and flaws. Maybe this was just a roundabout way of being controlling and manipulative. He groaned, closing his eyes. Well, isn't this just perfect? He asked out loud to no one in particular. A self-care advocate who can't even take pleasure in looking like the epitome of drop-dead gorgeous. He groaned again, putting his hand on his face as he rubbed them down his skin. His gloves got caught on some of his scales, and he just let his hand fall to his side. His mind was buzzing, so loudly that he couldn't even sort through his thoughts. He needed something to take the edge off. He was about to summon himself something to drink when the door burst open, barely staying on his hinges. What in Neptune did you send me, liability? Janus was sitting up, looking at the door more stunned than he should be while living with Remus. It took a moment for him to recover, his hat on the bed laying lazily where it had been. Oh, do tell, Roman. What exactly are you talking about? These photos, they're absolutely atrocious. He felt his heart sink. Just because he knew his scales were unappealing didn't mean he was going to let Roman bully him so easily. And what's so bad about them? The lighting is awful. I did not allow you to borrow my favorite lipstick to besmirch its reputation by hiding your beautiful face in the shadows you cloak yourself in. Where's your computer? We are fixing these now. There was a moment of silence where Janus watched as Roman looked around the room, spotting the laptop on the desk and sauntering over to it. He sat down and opened it without waiting. What's your password? What? What is your password? Roman asked, rolling his eyes. We are going to fix these pictures. The whiplash was exceedingly confusing and overwhelming. Janus was thankful that the princely side wasn't looking at him. It allowed him the space to figure out how to get his emotions under control. I know you have a lot of secrets, but I swear on my honor that I will only be looking at your photo editing software. If you want me to redo the photos, I can redo them on my own. Janus kept his voice soft and silky, grabbing his hat to put it back on, smoothing out his clothes and his appearance. I'm already here. And Logan said something about seeing others' perspectives being good for the creative process, blah, blah, blah. I stopped listening. You surprised me, Roman. After our tit-for-tat last time, I assumed you would want nothing to do with me. Maybe he was trying to push Roman away to wallow in his own self-pity. Maybe, in his own way, this was him searching for forgiveness. I'm not. His voice was high and offended, but then his shoulders slumped a bit. We both said things we weren't proud of, right? There was a pleading edge, like he was begging for Janus to agree that he hadn't meant what he had said when he hurt Roman. I would agree that there were things said on both sides that should not have been spoken. Roman nodded. Then as a prince, it is my job, nay, my responsibility, to mend the bridge that I set aflame, even if that bridge was already covered in gasoline. Janus nodded, leaning over Roman to type in his password. Roman had been the first one to give him a chance. He might have gone back on that, but he had at least started off on Janus's side. That was something, right? What do you suggest for the pictures? If you want to hide your scales, you can. Don't think I didn't notice that. Though I think you should highlight them for a few photos. They really suit you. And his voice was much too soft to be mocking. Maybe a few. If you believe that is best. You are the creativity that likes beautiful things. Roman smiled at that, settling into the chair as he began to modify some of the pictures, taking away the extra effects that added the shadows to Janus's face. He didn't take away all of them, but rather than Janus hiding in the shadows, it gave him an air of secret and mystery. There, much better, Roman said after a few hours of editing. What do you think? They look exquisite. They truly did. Janus was beginning to once again feel as elegant as he wanted to portray. There was still a small nagging voice in the back of his head, but for the time being, seeing Roman smile, it was silenced. Really? Completely and truly. Roman hesitated before taking in a deep breath. I'm going to choose to believe that. Try not to betray that trust, Janus. I will do the best I can, Your Highness. Roman stood up, looking Janus over before nodding slowly. Well then, I'm going to work on getting these queued up. He walked towards the door, turning in its frame to look at Janus. There was a statement on his lips, something he wanted to say but couldn't. Janus waited patiently, feeling the tension of words left unsaid, before Roman just shook his head. Good night. Then he left. He was feeling better about himself after that, but even more so, he was feeling better about his relationship with the others. If things with Roman could be repaired, then maybe they could all join together again. It wasn't perfect, but it was a step in the right direction. 5 down, 2 to go. Janus whispered to himself, looking at the pictures before once again closing his computer. Thank you all for listening. Again, this was Elegance and Scales. This does take place before Remus's photo, as an interesting note. I do hope you all enjoyed it, and I hope you have a wonderful day.